fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo. And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you on what is probably the busiest news week we've had in a very long time. Say this about Donald Trump, but there is a pace being set that is really beyond belief. Thanks for tuning into the show. Great to have you aboard. We got a great show for you this week. In addition to the big news breaking between the announcement of Donald Trump, President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, which we'll get into in a minute. We'll also be talking to two great guests on the show. We got Jenny Beth Martin from Tea Party Patriots talking about how the left is trying to copy the Tea Party movement, but doing a horrible, horrible job of it. We'll also be talking to Cynthia Garrett, the principal of Families Advocating for Campus Equality, and we'll be talking about these Kangaroo Courts going on college campuses that are taking away the rights of the accused of sexual assault and things of that nature, and we'll explain why this is so important to talk about during that interview. But right now, let's get right into the heart of the matter. The big news this week, Justice Neil Gorsuch has been selected by President Donald Trump to be his nominee to take the seat of Judge Antonin Scalia, the late, great Antonin Scalia, on the Supreme Court. This leaves many people wondering who Neil Gorsuch is. Well, let's get right into his bio right now. And I want to thank SCOTUS blog for putting up all great information about all the nominees. Judge Neil Gorsuch of the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals was appointed there by George W. Bush and confirmed with bipartisan support, I might add, soon thereafter. He has so many great qualities about him. Besides the fact that he's relatively young, he's only going to be 50 years old this coming year, which means they'll have a whole generation on the court. His background has amazing academic credentials, as you would expect. Harvard Law School, rather. He has clerked under Justice Kennedy, who, those of you who follow the Supreme Court, you should know that Justice Kennedy is usually the swing vote and writes many, many opinions across a number of topics, and having worked for Justice Kennedy, that would mean that possibly Judge Gorsuch was writing those decisions, so he has probably a familiarity with the Supreme Court. As we said, he sits on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. He is celebrated, according to SCOTUS blog, as a keen legal thinker with a particularly incisive legal writing and a flair that matches or at least evokes that of the justice of whose seat he would be nominated to fill, that being Antonin Scalia. I heard Senator Mike Lee, former guest on the show, on making the rounds on the Foxes and the other shows, talking about how he has appeared as an appellate advocate before Judge Gorsuch and how he always remarked how he was fair, honest, but that he read all the paperwork. These are the qualities that, as an attorney, at least I know, are those that you want in every type of jurist that you want to appear before. Judge Gorsuch's decisions bear the comparison out between himself and Judge Scalia in that they are both not only entertaining in their writing, and I've read a few of his decisions. Legal writing, folks, is not something you want to read for pleasure. It's something maybe you fall asleep to when you're getting ready for bed. That happens to be my job, of course, outside of the great world I have here behind enemy lines. But Judge Gorsuch has a little bit of a flair to his writing, but he also has the commonality of being an originalist on the court. He's not looking into this progressive idea of a legislator from the bench. He's not going to be making law from the bench. He will apply the law to the facts. He will call balls and strikes, and that's what he does. It's really amazing the similarities here. On religion, he's been an ardent defender of religious freedom. You'll recall that Gorsuch participated in the Hobby Lobby case, and also the Little Sisters of the Poor home that were both before the Supreme Court. Hobby Lobby, Judge Gorsuch wrote a concurrence with the decision, siding with Hobby Lobby and its owners, and he stressed the need to accept these parties' own conceptions regarding their requirements of their faith. This is important. If you remember the Hobby Lobby decision, it was if a company and the majority of its owners have deeply held religious beliefs, they have to be respected, and they have to be they're important, and they must be legally bound by. So Hobby Lobby was, allowed to give out certain contraception that it wanted to, others that it was religiously against, it chose not to. The owners decided that. In Little Sisters of the Poor, Gorsuch was, again, joining with the 10th Circuit, joining with judges who actually dissented from the denier of the rehearing of the matter. The point was that there was insufficient deference to the Little Sisters of the Poor on articulation of their religious beliefs. Why is this important? Because there are cases and there's law across the nation where, you talk about, there was a sweet cakes case in Western United States where, if you didn't want to serve a lesbian or gay couple because of your deeply held religious beliefs, they were compelled to do so, and they had to face a six-figure fine and penalties for not doing so. Judge Gorsuch would have decided, if it was left to him, presumably, that if someone has deeply held religious beliefs, they can run their business as they see fit. I'm going through SCOTUS blog, and listen, you don't have to take the word from me, folks. You can go to scotusblog.com and take a look. And it goes into such detail, his feelings on the death penalty, his feelings on the Commerce Clause, which will be tested probably by many jurists and many cases. Commerce Clause, for those of you who know, deals with regulating business between the several states. And the Commerce Clause and the so-called Dormant Commerce Clause, which is really a construction of the court, is something where it seems like Judge Gorsuch's opinion will be very significant. He believes, as I'm going through this, while it's not really such a hot button now, if you remember, there was an argument under Obamacare that the Dormant Commerce Clause would allow it to be under the federal purview. There's so much information you have to deal with when dealing with these nominations. But listen, feel free to go to scotusblog.com, check him out, put his beliefs to the test, see if he's the one for you. I, as a conservative and as a constitutional originalist, believe this is a great pick. An absolutely great pick. Now let's talk about the politics of the situation, because this is where it's going to be a battle royale. Here, let's set the field right now. Donald Trump has placed his pick before the Senate. Senate Judiciary Committee is going to have their hearings. They're going to vote whichever way they're going to vote. It's held majority Republican right now, so he'll probably get past the committee. But it all depends on how much hemming and hawing you're going to get from the Democratic side. Then the fun begins on the floor of the Senate as a whole, because as it stands right now, under the rules of the Senate can still filibuster if you don't have enough votes, the 60 votes that you would need to pass the nomination of a Supreme Court justice. So that means unless you get a certain number of Democrats on your side, I believe you're going to need 8 Democrats to have a filibuster-proof majority. What's going to happen there? We already know that Chuck Schumer has vowed to go against any nominee of Trump, which shows you how crazy the politics is in Washington right now, folks. They didn't even know who was coming down the pipe. They didn't know if it was Neil Gorsuch or Judge Hardiman from Pennsylvania, or if it was going to be Judge Pryor, or whoever it may be. But they were dead set against it no matter what. And the reason why is because they feel this is a, quote, stolen seat, because the Republicans, as the Senate majority under President Obama, refused to even take up the nomination of Merrick Garland in the waning months of the Obama presidency. So now it's tit for tat. That's what they're doing here. It's absolutely disgusting and the most base politics you'll ever see. And you see it right now already with President Trump's nominees for his cabinet. We're still waiting on a Secretary of State. We're still waiting on a U.S. ambassador. We're still waiting on a Department of Treasury head. We're still waiting on Health and Human Services head. We're still waiting on a number of positions. And the reason why is petty politics. It's absolutely ridiculous, folks. I don't know why the nation is standing for it. The stock market certainly is not standing for it. The stock market has been dropping the past couple of days, especially early this week as you're listening to the show. And what we're seeing is instability in the market being caused by this Democrat hissy fit. It's absolutely unbelievable. But back to the battle for the Supreme Court now. The filibuster may be in play, but as we saw when Harry Reid was running the chamber, the filibuster rule, the so-called nuclear option, was taken up by the Democrats. They decided for lower-level offices and certain cabinet positions, you only needed a simple majority. That way, the filibuster was taken out of play. So now that the shoe's on the other foot, will Mitch McConnell take the filibuster rule, the nuclear option, and bring it to another level with Supreme Court nominations, a move that Harry Reid said he was actually in favor of when he was still in the chamber, that he would have done had he still been in charge? Will Mitch McConnell take that and put it on the table to bring Trump's nomination home? That remains to be seen, folks. It's going to be very interesting to see. If I'm Mitch McConnell, that's kind of a catch-22. If you worry about being looked as a hypocrite, if you worry about political hypocrisy, you don't do the nuclear option. That being said, it shouldn't be on the table at this point with the nomination just coming out this week. What should be on the table is trying to consensus build. Neil Gorsuch had bipartisan support when he was appointed to the Court of Appeals. There was no issue with his nomination at all. The reason why there's an issue with the nomination now is because of the balance of the court. You have 4 justices that are considered liberal. You have 4 justices that are considered centrist or conservative, so-called, or if you want to call them originalists or constitutionalists, strict constructionists, whatever you want to call them. That's the makeup of the court right now. By putting Neil Gorsuch in Antonin Scalia's seat, resets the balance of the court where it was to before Justice Scalia passed. So what we're seeing here is a battle, not only in this administration, but a battle for the ages. Because Neil Gorsuch, again, he's just turning 50 this year. We're going to see what happens. He'll be around. Remember, it's a lifetime position. He'll be around for a generation or more. That's what's on the line right now. And right now, and to me, this is the battle that voters wanted waged. I voted for Donald Trump, not because I like Donald Trump. I gotta be honest, I'm not thrilled with him. But he promised to put conservatives on the court, especially into Justice Scalia's seat. He is now fulfilling that promise, and he is rewarding my vote. I love that. I love that Donald Trump is following through on what he's saying. And let's face it, as we sit here right now, he's followed through on everything he's promised so far. From that respect, it's been a very good couple of weeks if you voted for Donald Trump and if you believe that he's going to make America great again. But before we get into everything else, folks, I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Check us out at www.behindenemylines.radio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you missed any part of the show that we normally do live on Tuesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM in Adel, Georgia, and WLBB 1330 AM in Carrollton, Georgia, all part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. You can also catch us online at KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's conservative radio network, and Lanterns Radio. Check them out at lanterns.buzz. And if you missed any of those rebroadcasts, don't worry. You can still catch us on demand as a podcast anytime you like, just by finding us in iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Pod.